Colin Wood, a motorcycle volunteer. Been here now, it must be getting on for 10 years. This is my first project that I did for John Ferris, who unfortunately is in a home at the moment. He suffers from Parkinson's, but he bought this bike in a pile of bits, and it literally was a pile of bits. Half the frame was missing. The only really original bits are the front forks and the front brake and the front half of the frame. The rest had to be manufactured. The engine came with it, although OK Supremes never actually fitted this engine. This is what JAP's called as JAP Presswick, a high cam engine which was built between 1937 and 1938. And once the war came, JAPs stopped making these engines and continued after the war with the Speedway engines, and that's all they did. So this is a very rare engine actually, being only produced for 2 years, and there's not many about these days. What I had to do was to set up the frame on a flat table, and with spirit levels, etc, etc, I managed to refabricate the bottom tubes of the frame to link up with the rear triangle of the frame which came with it, but those, for some reason, those tubes had been cut out and they weren't there, they were missing. Fortunately, it turned out a treat. Everything was in line. The engine was in good condition. I took a chance with the big end because I think it was the original big end. And I can't just go and buy big ends these days. You have to have them made for these engines. I shall come to that in a bit. The gearbox was in good condition, and everything was, the rear hub was there and the front brake was there. Colour wise, we looked at some information, and you could either, in those days, you could either have a black one or the racing one was a very pale blue. But I'll take responsibility. I chose this shade of blue, and it's slightly too dark actually. It should be lighter, but never mind. Because it's blue, it does stick out quite well. People seem to like it. But this has done many parades at Brands Hatch, Mallory Park mainly, for the 1,000 bikes for the Vintage Motorcycle Club. It's done many laps around there. Brands Hatch. Yeah, it runs perfectly until one day it started making a horrible noise, and it was still running, which was rather strange, but it sounded terrible. So I pulled it all apart, took it home, pulled it all apart, and the crank pin had broke. And it had broke just like a carrot. So although they were still together, the crankshaft was doing all sorts of funny things, but it was still running, which is very similar to what happened to me back in the 1960s when I broke a crank pin on a velo at Thruxton, and exactly the same happened there. It made a horrible noise and then started to slow down. I pulled over, fortunately, right near the pits, and I looked down, and although the engine was running, the primary chain wasn't going round. So I looked again, and the sprocket had stopped. on the drive side, and exactly the same had happened there. The crank pin had snapped clean in half, and the conrod was attached to the drives, the timing side of the engine, so that was still running, but the flywheel on the drive side was stationary. Never come across it before until that happened to this one, which is very, very similar. And funny enough, they were both Alpha bearings, big ends.
Okay.
And we had to go to Alphas to get a new crank pin made for this, because at the time Alphas were the only people. This is Alphas in Birmingham, and the chap that did it has since died. But I think they're doing specialist big ends now. But they were the only people that could produce big ends for this. So we're keeping our fingers crossed it doesn't happen again. But yeah, it runs a treat. People like using it because all they have to do is get it out of the showroom, put some petrol in it,
Off it goes.
give it a kick, and away it goes. And yeah, it's John's bike actually, he still owns it. But it was a major project, and I think at the time I did make an account of how long. I think it took me about 600 hours of my time to restore it and get it working. I've been working on British bikes since I was 16, and sometimes you think, where's my life gone? You know? No, this was the very first bike I restored here, and there it is. It runs a treat, and I believe it's going to be used today. Yes. Oh yeah, we did have a bit more trouble. The mag, when Mike Sands was riding it at Brands Hatch, it stopped one day, and of course it was a, you know, oh dear, that's a major problem. All it was that the engine was actually breathing through the mag, so the mag became full of oil. And when I pulled it all apart, I could see what the problem was. The mag was full of oil. That stopped it working. So what I did, put new seals into the mag and put another breather on the timing case of the engine so that it breathes into fresh air. And since then, touch wood, it hasn't given any problem.
Colin, do you know why this bike has been nominated to be ridden by Maria?
Well, I suppose because it's outstanding. You know, it's only a one-off. The colour of it may be, and the fact that we know it will run. It won't give problems. I can guarantee that the minute it fires, she'll be able to ride it.
Was she a successful bike in the day, competition?
Oh yeah, they were. Not necessarily with this engine though. As I said earlier, that this engine shouldn't really be in that frame. They built their own racing engines over at Cams, and I think they also fitted Blackburn engines and JAP engines, but they were, I think, what they called lighthouse engines. They had a glass window up at the top of the rocker box, so you could actually see the things moving. So yeah, it was a totally different engine to what this one's got. That was a trait that Oakhays did for their lighthouse engine, so you could see the little glass window.
Yeah.
Which would have been up here. I copied that for this engine, although it is surplus to requirements, but John wanted it reproduced, which I did.
She's a lovely paint job, isn't she?
Yeah. They made a firm in Banbury did that. They car painters, they did that. Yeah, I was quite pleased with that.